So in this video I will show you how to play the Moog Grandmother's arpeggiator and sequencer at ultra fast and uber slow speeds. I will also include some hints and tips and ideas and suggestions of things that you might want to do and might want to try when you are doing this. Now this video does assume that you know how the arpeggiator and sequencer work, the basic functions at least. If you want more information about the arpeggiator, then I have a video here. I shall leave a link to it in the description as well, which goes into a lot of detail about exactly how the arpeggiator works, also with hints and tips about how you can use it. Now you probably know that you can synchronize the Grandmother to an external clock source either via MIDI clock or via CV and control the tempo that way. However, in this tutorial I am only going to use the third option, which is to use tap tempo. So you don't need any external equipment to try this with your Grandmother. Now, being able to play notes with the arpeggiator and sequencer at a very fast rate opens up the door to a whole lot of sonic possibilities. So this is what we are going to explore. Exciting! Let's go and see Grandma. Okay, so I have set up what I call an arpeggio type sound, which is just a short sort of plucky sound. I am only using one oscillator, so you can hear what's happening. There's no filter or LFOs or anything else going on here. So let's start by setting up a simple arpeggio. Now, let's see how slow this can go. That's pretty slow. Not as slow as it can go, but that is pretty slow. So let's see how fast it can go. So that is pretty fast. You can hear the individual notes. Let's spread this out a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty fast. You can make out the individual notes. That would sound quite nice in a backing or a topping to a piece of music. But we can make the arpeggiator and the sequencer play faster and slower than this. And we can do this using the tap tempo button. Now, to use the tap tempo, you have to press the tap button at least 3 times. So I am assuming it will average the time between the first 2 presses and the second 2 presses. So let's see. Oh, it's slowed down. Well, the interesting thing about the tap tempo function is that it does not disable the rate knob. So this is on maximum at the moment. So let's just slow this down. Whoa, what's happened here? So that's about the speed it was playing before, but when you activate the tap tempo button, it actually seems to increase the range of the rate knob. That is much faster, and if we turn this down, yes, that is much slower as well. So simply by activating the tap tempo button, you can get a faster or slower tempo. Now, why might you want to do this? Well, I'm glad you asked. As it says on page 1 of the Adventurous Synthesist Handbook, we do it because we can. But let's see if there are any practical uses to this. So I'll just pause this for a second. A quick word from our sponsor. So I have to sponsor my own videos now. What is the world coming to? Anyway, okay. I just wanted to go over 3 things 3 things. And I sort of thought it was better if you were looking at me rather than a blank grandmother. So the first thing is information about sound, which you may well be aware of, but just in case anyone is not. If you take a sound which may not normally considered to be a pitch sound, such as a bass drum or a snare or a hi-hat, and play it fast enough, then it will turn into a pitch. Our ears perceive this as pitch because it is increasing the frequency of the sound. I hope that makes sense, but I shall demonstrate this on the grandmother in a second. Now, the other 2 things relate to the way that tap tempo and the rate knob are connected. Now, believe it or not, I was really trying to keep this short and concise. So there are a couple of things I don't want to get into over on the grandmother, but I think I really do need to explain them. So the first is that if you synchronize the grandmother to an external clock source, or indeed use the tap tempo, then the rate knob, as we have seen and will see, adjusts the tempo by subdivisions of the beat. So when I am adjusting the speed on the grandmother, you will hear that it does not smoothly change the pitch. That's because it's jumping in between divisions of the beat. And normally these are even and dotted note divisions. However, if you hold the shift key while you adjust the rate knob, this changes the tempo in triplet subdivisions. I didn't really want to get that deep into this example, so I'm explaining it now. This is something else you can try and experiment with, but it does mean you have greater control over the pitches that you produce. Right, let's get back to grandmother. So if we make a very fast envelope with no sustain, we get clicks. Now, if we increase the speed of the clicks, they almost turn into a separate pitch. And if we just use a single note, it does turn into a pitch. There's the clicks. Speed it up. Now we're using this waveform which has not got many harmonics in it, but if we switch this to another waveform, there's a lot of harmonics being played very rapidly. So we get a slightly different tone. But I will put that back. So what happens if we play 2 notes? Well, that's what happens. Now we've played 2 notes an octave apart, so they are fairly harmonious. And of course you can try 3 notes or semitones. Different waveforms, see what results you get. Now let us bring in the sequencer. We'll pause that for a second. Now the sequencer works in exactly the same way as the arpeggiator. So let's record a single note using the sequencer. So again we have the clicky noise. And as we speed it up, it turns into a pitch. And of course one of the interesting things about the arpeggiator is that you can play the sequence, in this case it's only 1 note, but you can play the sequence by pressing any key. So you can create a sound and play. It's possibly not 100% in tune, but you can play different notes with it. Now, here is an interesting thing. We are currently just listening to a click with as short and fast an envelope as possible, but if we increase the sustain, we bring in what seems to be the fundamental note. So we get a mix of a fundamental pitch and the result of the fast clicky sound. So we're sort of getting two sounds from the Grandmother for the price of one. And even there you can hear the pitch and the click. So, as we did with the Arpeggiator, we can record two notes. So there is a massive amount of room for experimentation and sonic fun here. Now remember, we are only using the one oscillator and this fairly simple waveform, so we could change the waveform. If we bring in the second oscillator, so we are actually now getting three different tones, three different pitches. From the Grandmother. Okay, so we have not yet engaged the filter or the LFO, but I will leave that up to you to experiment with those features. Okay, let's look at the other extreme. Let's see how slowly we can play this. Again, I've set up the Arpeggiator. So let's do a slow key press. So that was fairly slow. And again, the rate knob adjusts the tempo range. Lost it, where's it? So okay, so that's roughly the default slow tempo, but we are only halfway around, so this is really slow. And we are not as slow as it will go yet. This is minimum. We're expecting the note to arrive any minute now. Okay, bear with us. It's still working. It is just very slow. There we go. Okay. So you could probably make it even slower than that, but I don't want you to be sitting here for the next 3 days watching this. So let's just speed this up just a little bit to imagine this is we've speeded up time. So okay, so you can play this very slowly. So this doesn't work in the same way as increasing the speed, which increases the frequency of the notes. This really just lets you play single notes at a very, very slow speed. So what can you do with this? You can use this to set up a sequence of slow notes, which might form the set of bass notes perhaps for a piece of music, or drones perhaps. If we switch this to drone mode, then we get a continuous stream of notes which will evolve very slowly. So you could use this as a sort of backdrop and put a sequence on top of it, and of course you can sync the grandmother to another piece of equipment so everything's in sync if that's what you wish to do. And if you don't have it in drone mode, then you can adjust the envelope, of course, to change the tone as it's being produced. You can filter it, you can add frequency and filter modulation, etc., etc. So that is essentially how you can make the grandmother play ultra fast or uber slow. So I hope you found this interesting and useful, and I hope you are excited to try these ideas with your grandmother. When I was trying to work out what to put in the video and what to leave out, I have tried very hard just to put the concise, essential bits of information in it. I actually played with these ideas for hours. It was a lot of fun. There are so many things you can try which I haven't really touched on. So if you have any other ideas, please leave them in the comments, and if you produce any music using any of these ideas, then please leave a link in the comments as well. One thing which I forgot to include in the video, in the slow section, what you can also do is to turn up the glide function, and this creates a series of sliding pitches. You need to try it for yourself. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video and found it entertaining, informative, instructional, any of the above. And if you did, if you like tutorials, if you like talking about synthesizers, if you like electronic music, then perhaps you'd like to consider subscribing to the channel, ring the bell. Thank you. And lost the plot. And hit the big thumb, because that also helps as well. If you have any questions, then also leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. Meanwhile, have fun with your grandmother, and I will see you again soon in the next video.